So I've been in youth ministry for quite close to 6 years now. And so I've been in California for almost four. I moved from Michigan and I was helping we have an FECC plant in Michigan. That's where I got plugged in 2015. And I was helping with the youth not too long in there. And then the church in Cerritos has been without a youth pastor for 2 years. And I made my way over in 2018. And yeah, so it's been a learning process just getting used to West Coast and also learning a new group of students. When I was in Michigan, we started with 12, 10 to 12 kids when I arrived, and we got to about 30, 35 by the time I left. And I moved to Cerritos to approach a youth group that was at 50 to 60, and I knew none of them. So it was a bit of a transition, and I was still finishing my last year of seminary, and yeah, it took a little while for me to find my footing and my ground to first get to know the students and to also realize that for 2 years they didn't have a youth pastor, and then also build the trust and credibility with them and with the parents. And then I was also finishing my last year of seminary, and so by the time I finished, it was 2019. And so that doesn't leave a lot of time between when that and the pandemic hit. There was probably only about 6 to 7 months before the pandemic hit. And so I feel like that's where a lot of my sharing will be coming in is the pandemic, I think, hit the youth really hard, and especially for our ministry. Um, for me personally, I was on Zoom for about 20 hours a week for the first 4 to 6 months with the kids. So on top of my other church duties, right, speaking, and then also my regular ministerial things with the other staff. But for strictly for the students, I was on Zoom for literally 20 hours a week. Um, and I felt like the kids had all these things taken away from them. So I feel like there was a perfect opportunity to capitalize and utilize that time, but it came at the cost of all of the emotional and just physical strain of screen time that the kids were adjusting to this new normal. And so I had a lot of different activities from prayer meetings to game times to worship times to just check-ins, office hours just for kids to do their homework in front of other people so they're not just on their own studying. And all of these things on top of fellowship and Sunday service, all of these things contributed to a lot of, um, I think, physical strain for the students. And I was really worried about how they would connect. And so um, thankfully, last June, our church was able to resume in-person services. And for a while, the students, when we first went online, the numbers went in half. So we're about 40 kids. We went to about 20 online. And then maybe a few months into the pandemic, we started building back to the mid 30s and then kind of made our way and kept it stable, close to 40. Um, and I think a lot of that just came from doing activities that would help the kids unwind and also feel like they were supported beyond just the school. If they were doing everything in front of their computers, we wanted to do things just to enjoy each other's presence, whether that's socials or find ways to do different studies and all of these things as well. Um, and so I felt like it was a little bit different and it was a good time for more of the students to connect during that time. So within the pandemic, we were able to start a Bible study actually for, or like a regular devotional time that hasn't happened before. So we had both a boys and a girls devotion time regularly. And I felt like that was encouraging for me to see how committed the students were, and knowing that they wanted more. And so from that, I think we were able to build around that and see that the students really do care about their faith. And especially when things are turned upside down, they turn to it. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why when we started coming back in person, we've had the success in retaining the students and getting good attendance for them as well. So uh, yeah, I feel like just a few slides or points that I wanted to share. Um, how our church is reaching out to the youth, especially now. We've been continuing our regular in-person Friday fellowship and also our Sunday schools, as well as service on Sunday, and also offering things throughout the week that the kids can connect with. So before we were doing a lot of things on Zoom, like a side worship time during the week or a game time, but with school, that's not as plausible to do. But we still have prayer meetings for the students on Zoom because I know for the parents, they have it in person, but the kids aren't going to be able to drive themselves or they don't drive at this point. So having the easy access to us and to pray together, I feel like has been encouraging. Um, and also continuing to look towards discipleship. I personally mentor a handful of the student leaders and then also other potential leaders in the future as well. Anyone who's willing or has continued to show interest, um, we try and make sure we invest time to develop them and also to pour into their lives. Yeah. So the second thing is we have sports ministries. So we have basketball at our church, and we also have volleyball currently. And so something that we've noticed recently, the last couple months, is from some of the local high schools, friends that play on the volleyball team, they'll invite their friends. And so we've actually gotten probably a good 10 to 12 students that have come off and on to fellowship, but we have volleyball right before our Friday fellowship. So they can hit around for about an hour and then hour and a half, and then we have fellowship, and then we give some extra gym time afterwards. And so it gives a little bit more incentive for the kids who want to come play sports, but also can plug in with our fellowship and experience worship if they haven't before. Um, yeah, some of the spectrum is that the students have zero exposure to faith. Some of them have had um, a little bit background, but they're not really connected to a church. So I've been very encouraged by that. And then also we're looking to start a badminton sports time as well because I feel like it's identifying where the students in the youth are participating in their schools and how we can equip them and challenge them to lead an activity or to invite their friends to something. It's just a way that I feel like we can empower them and come alongside of them. So, and then also, yeah, the continued investment in our students and our core leaders that let them know that they're valued and then also meet them where they are. I think that's one of the biggest things that we continue to do. So here's a picture of our core team, our student leaders. We've also been trying to do more in-person meetups. I think during the pandemic, we were meeting mostly through Zoom, but we did a little backyard hangout just a couple months ago, and I feel like that was something that they really looked forward to because of all of the balance with school and the safety protocols with COVID. They haven't been able to meet up too much, and so I think they were really thankful and enjoyed that time together. Um, a few strategies I feel like for us as our youth and our church has done. Um, a lot of check-ins. I feel like this also on top of the the regular Zoom hours that I did, um, checking in and noticing who's not in the youth group on a given Friday. I feel like I've become a lot more in tune with just taking a mental snapshot on who's there and who's not there, and telling myself I should reach out to these people. Um, if I haven't seen them, or encouraging the other leaders to see who's not there and also to just check in if they can or if they notice people who are missing. And then I think the other one, just being flexible. That's probably the biggest learning experience from the pandemic and being on Zoom and online is I think there was one Friday specifically when we first started meeting in person, and right after the kids started school, um, the kids just came and they just sat down. As soon as they got into they didn't even like too many kids didn't talk, they just sat and we had all
Right.
these different plans for like icebreakers and things to do. And then I was just telling my other leaders, like, you know what? Just let the kids be. And I feel like they're just exhausted. And so we need to be able to recognize the room and then see where the kids are. I feel like I've been a lot more in tune with just asking kids how they're doing. And then also when I feel the heaviness, not being afraid to just change plans as even if we've prepared for something, knowing that sometimes the kids just need to take that step back. Um, Something else that I'm really proud of our church that we've done is we've addressed topics like mental health and then encouraging the kids to slow down. So, because of the pandemic, I'm sure you've seen different statistics on the mental health and the drain that it's been on people, not just the students, but especially for the students that they had this routine, this schedule of life, and that got taken away for 2 years. And so, a lot of students have expressed anxiety, depression, things that in terms of being at home so much and feeling trapped or not being able to express themselves, not being able to interact if they want with their friends, all of these things, being able to take away the taboo of sharing and explaining more about mental health. I think it's given our church an avenue to speak to the adults and the parents too that may feel this idea of praying these things away, which I believe it doesn't diminish the power of prayer, but also recognizing the mental illness that's around and being able to address it too. Um, yeah, I feel like the kids have felt more enabled to just share that they're not doing as well or that they don't have to put up a front. Um, yeah, when they're at church and to be able to open up to other youth helpers that are around. Um, and then I think the other thing that I've been leaning more towards this year, and it's been on my heart a lot, is investment towards family ministry. I think the when I first got into youth ministry, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to love these kids, these students from middle school, high school, and prepare them for college. And something in the last year that I've noticed is the divide in family and with parents and kids not being able to share with their parents. And some of the parents have reached out and expressed like, how do I talk to my kids about this? Or I ask my kids how Friday or Sunday's going, and the kids just say good. And there's no conversation. And so for me this coming year, I just started at the beginning of the year a prayer meeting for the parents specifically. Even though I was meeting with students before, I started doing some things with the parents and also assembling teams of volunteers for the parents. And also I plan to check in with parents too and offer them some reading material and some other things, sharing a little bit more, challenging them for our Sunday school material too. There's a book and things that we're going through for Sunday school, and I've let the parents know this is the book we're going through. If you're curious, get the book and read through it and talk to your kids about it. And so I think just equipping the parents to have more involvement with the students and building up the family is something that um, I feel like has been a blessing, and it's also been a revelation for me is knowing that if I we get kids for the 6 years or so that they're in youth, what happens afterwards? What when they go to college and beyond, if their relationships at home with their parents and family isn't good, then it's going to be associated with faith in that same way, especially if their parents are part of the church. Um, yeah, and so just the continued investment towards family ministry. So these are just a handful of the activities that we've done. So throughout the pandemic on Zoom, especially, we had to do this is a VBS that we gathered some kids. We had to do Sunday schools and different programs. We did different Jackbox games. We had to find very creative ways to reach out and to capture the kids and get them involved with things. Um, so there were a lot of challenges with that, but I think staying engaged and also letting them know that we're trying to do all of these different plans to help them stay connected to community. I think that was just something that we're trying to do. Um, so some challenges that we faced as well is just burnout. That happened very naturally. There was an excitement that the kids had throughout um, when we first started Zoom and doing different activities. I felt like we had a good trend, and then once spring of 2021 kind of came in, um, the kids just all hit this wall, and then I felt like the numbers dipped, the participation and involvement also kind of dipped, and I think it's because the schoolwork and everything started picking up again. and they couldn't rebalance their schedule on top of what they were doing. Um, yeah, so I feel like that was something that we really encountered and saw a lot of, um, and how connected they felt. And so I think that's where it was important for us to keep reaching out to them. Um, Continued anxiety and depression the students have shared, whether it's circumstance, their own personal things have just been going on at home. Um, and then also just timing of plans, and then also wanting to do some new things. I feel like this is something that um, as you try and be innovative in ministry, it gets challenging. When you want to do something new, you need to get the buy-in. And so um, I feel like that's something that we always face as well. And then something else was just the availability of adult leaders that aren't students. So if you can imagine that I'm trying to lead a youth group of 40 to 50 kids, and there's not many adult leaders. Any activity that the students do, there has to be an adult supervision. So that pretty much falls on me a lot of the times. And so taking the time to build up and train other adult leaders, I feel like has been a challenge for me as well that I've encountered. Even this past year, my wife and I, we had to split the Sunday school just in half from guys to girls. So we used to have smaller classes by like grades or every 2 grades, and we had more classes. But because of the lack of availability of adult leaders, we just had to split it right down the middle. And from 7th to 12th grade, all the students are together, boys and girls. And so I think being able to train up leaders is a very important thing, but it's a big challenge for youth ministry, but I think any ministry. Um, but I think within the pandemic as well, just one last area I wanted to share is that there have been books that I feel like I needed to educate myself on top of all of these things, just reading materials. Um, and so I addressed a lot of different things, but I also felt like I needed to build myself up. And so um, oh, sorry, one last challenge, but the balance of family and life to ministry as well. So just personal balance with how much I give to the students and also my own time. And what is that kind of cutoff, or is there a like a personal goal and how I need to say, okay, at this point, I'm going to try and stay away from the phone or checking responses unless it's an emergency. Being able to also have that balance of family and life is also something that has been blurred a lot during the pandemic too, when everything's just connected through one platform. Um, but some books that I've gone through for me personally, there are these 2 books here that were helpful. The Leading on Empty. This one just talks about like how can you serve or help filling up your meter and your bar, and not just serving when you have an empty tank, because burnout is just so real in ministry. And then the second one is the Youth Ministry in the Season of Disruption. I feel like this one um, was a very helpful book in terms of other ministers or ministries around the country, that as the pandemic hit, what people tried to do and how they went about their ministries. And it was helpful for me to just see that I'm not alone in all of these things, where drive-by baptisms, drive-through gatherings to do like a meal at church, these types of things became the norm for about a year and a half. And so seeing that other churches, other ministries were having these struggles too, and that I didn't feel alone in that, that was just a helpful resource for me too. Um, and then ones for Sunday school, these are 2 that we've gone through. The unique one, this one is just gives the kids more identity in Christ and speaks to them. It talks about who they are, and it shares a little bit more of the um, even the Myers-Briggs and some personality tests, spiritual gifts, love languages. I think it gave the kids some good feedback in terms of seeing their own identity and knowing that they're unique, and then also building upon that. And then the other one that we're currently going through for Sunday school is the Jesus I Wish I Knew in High School. Is that one's written by many authors who just share a very good, I think there's like a 3-part study where there's a story that relates to the kids. There's an application about how they wish at that time if they were to go back and tell themselves something like a truth from Jesus, what would it be? And then also currently, like the author to the students, what would I give to you as advice? Um, it's a very short and simple, kind of like three-step process with some devos and what we go through for Sunday school. It's been very good, I think, and it's written by a lot of local pastors as well. Um, Resources for the parents. I think this is one that I looked into, just thinking that for the parents, on top of the Sunday school books that I've shared with them, I challenged them to go through this book. This is written by a mom who recognizes the need for apologetics and taking care of their children. And I mean, I'm not a parent yet or anything, and I'm not a mom, obviously, but I think it was helpful to just read and hear some of the takes that a mom has for her children. And I think that it's something that will develop a heart for the parents for their children and how they can realize that from an early age they need to help their children be able to defend their faith and also speak into that a little bit more. Um, and then the last one is some of the books that we shared on mental health. These ones were just a few that we looked into, but these have shared a lot of insight on, um, yeah, just personal struggles, ministries, people who've gone through mental health, suicidal ideation, and also trying to balance and wrestle through that. These have just been some of the resources that I've shared and also gleaned through to get a better understanding and how I can share with the ministry. And then I think just the last picture that I want to show is an encouragement for me is that our church has been trying to develop um, a family ministry, and we've been trying to, at least the English congregations, we have an English adults, we have a college young adults, and then we have the youth, just trying to blend all of them together. At one point, they were three separate services, and so currently the college young adults and the youth meet together for Sunday service. And so in the fall, we had a retreat that had all of the English speaking together, and it just showed us a little bit more on what's the direction, the future of the family of our church, and we were encouraged, and so that's something that we continue to build here with us at FECC.
Yeah, if I could ask Pastor Jeff, I think it was really encouraging to just hear a lot of the different ideas and stuff you're doing. I guess my question is just with in mind what you talked about, burnout, thinking of the time that goes in, and also the current state of what leaders you have, especially if there's a lack. I think my question is, knowing you've been there for 6 years, I believe, at the current church, I think just wondering what it looked like for now for you to be implementing all that stuff, like the sports ministries, the discipleship, different stuff you're doing for Sunday school, small groups. I think I'm just asking, I guess, did you see it as a process building up over the years to be at now being able to implement all of those? And was it a bit of a, yeah, I guess a sense of a build up to now having all those running, kind of at once, or being able to flow in and out of them? And within, I guess, your earlier years there, is it something that was you trying some of them here and there? Or like you mentioned, I think something about the timing of implementing ideas as well. I'm just kind of curious for you, what did that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I got here, it was tough because there's a lot of things to take in, and I feel like what Leona shared about being anything for the first year, that's something that really held true for me. I feel like I saw things that could have been done differently, and it probably would have been like the Lone Ranger mentality, just like come out guns blazing, start overturning all these things, changing them. But I also had to recognize and appreciate the culture that was built and not do things too fast.
Mm.
And so for me, I think discipleship is something that's always been near and dear to my heart, and I wanted to see it very early. But also, if the kids haven't experienced discipleship before, I can't expect it to happen in the first year. And so I need to build a relationship with them before they can want to be discipled by someone altogether. And so I hope that they can cherish that relationship um, before they understand that there's more of a mentorship and someone walking with them in that. And so, yeah, I feel like things did build up as a process, and it did take a lot of time to explore and step back and see what we can do that's feasible, and then also change the plan as needed, and also set some goals for myself and for the youth group and for the church, but also knowing that if it doesn't reach that goal, that it's okay. It's not in our own timing. It's always in God's. And so I think that's where extending the grace to ourselves to be able to see that, but then also know that as pastors, we're called to have some vision and things that we want to see differently, and to trust in that, but also know that the process, it's not determined by the success or the merit of completing those things. And so, yeah, the different sports ministries, the discipleship, those have all come in and out or phased in and out for different things. And I've had to set different boundaries with that too, in terms of how much I can lead those things and how much I can delegate certain tasks, and always be aware of who I can trust to also delegate, right? And have other responsibilities. So, yeah, it's definitely been a process. And yeah, these didn't all come at the beginning. I think the more that you spend time with the people, you can see where their hearts and their needs are, and be in tune with that.